I am attempting the largest private biological engineering project in history, and it's about to get a whole lot crazier. These aren't just cages, terrariums, nor aquariums. I'm plumbing an entire rainforest world, a lush wetlands, a leafy tree canopy, and vast grasslands into a singular planet-scale superbiome for millions, possibly trillions of different organisms, from the micro to the macro, in one massive interconnected network. It's the first ever globalized micro-world of its kind, as predators and prey, plants and fungi interact in one massive, high-pressure, environmentally controlled system whose biological stories I document along the way. But a major change is about to take place in the entire system. A transformation on a vivarium-wide scale that will affect every life form within. And the creatures can already sense something major is coming. Welcome to the Season 7 premiere of my Ecosystem Vivarium series. You're right on time for the biological spectacle, the onset of the great change of the ecosystem, here on the Ants Canada Ant Channel. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC fam. Enjoy. A queen fire ant looked out into the sunlight atop the beast's head. She began to move. The Crimson Knights, the massive fire ant colony living in the open setup nearby, had had a nuptial flight the night before, as drowned elates lay lifeless around the beast. A beast that knew his return was imminent because of a promise made to him by the creator of worlds. Godzilla, the now much larger spectacled caiman who had undergone a year of socialization in this space, had successfully completed his training program and could feel a major change was near. Patience, Godzilla. Your time is coming. It's just a little while longer before your epic return. The morning sun came streaming into the ant room as a blue ant, a member of the Sapphire Royals, stood still, surveying the area while warming up in the morning sun. These blue ants aren't always out in the open, emerging from their nest only in the mornings and evenings, at which time they have a critical task to accomplish, especially now that a major change was fast approaching their forest. It was the sight of a mass commotion, a massive coming together of frugivores. Like vultures around a carcass, the fruit flies came from far-off areas of the forest to feed, as well as many ant species. And now the challenge begins for the blue ants. It climbed onto the rotting banana and began to carefully feed. The blue ants knew this was a timed feeding, so it rushed to drink up as much of the banana juice as it could. Away, fruit flies! It was looking for thicker areas of banana slime it could drink up. Ah! A black crazy ant had chased it away. These black crazy ants have been getting cockier around the food. Also feeding from the banana were the canopy's resident red ants, who stuck together, unafraid of the pesky black crazy ants. Also working on the fruit were the ever-aggressive acrobat ants, the chromatoblasters, who fed happily alongside the fruit flies. These pieces of banana were placed in here as an ecosystem event to provide the forest and its frugivorous creatures with essential nutrients. And now more than ever, the creatures of our rainforest were going to need it for the major change that was up ahead. The fruit has become a major grounds for competition, for the creatures that could collect the most of this available food would have the best chances of survival. against the harsh change that was up ahead, not just for the blue ants, but for every creature in Arcadia who could sense that a big change was coming. Luckily, there were several pieces of fruit all around the forest, so every species had the opportunity to collect what it needed. These blue ants are my favorite species of ant, and a complete dream to have in our forest, so I was happy to see it feeding from the fruit. In contrast, another species I didn't quite favor had claimed this piece of fruit theirs. A swarm of black crazy ants, known as the Dark Horde, had managed to blanket this banana and drive off all competitors, including the flies. They were introduced here unintentionally via the decor and are an invasive species in the forest. Though I've tried to eliminate them, they continue to bounce back again and again. And at this point, I've just come to accept them as a part of the forest that I need to call back as often as I can. I placed the piece of banana into an AC Ant Tower ant farm from antscanada.com, where they could live out their lives until they died out. I have found this to be the most humane way of dealing with things for now, particularly during this critical period before the Great Change, when things will inevitably tip in the favor of the black crazy ants. So what is this oncoming Great Change, you ask? Why would the invasive Dark Horde benefit from it? Well, to answer that, let me show you what is already happening at floor level. Down in Pandora, the rainforest floor, the transformation has already begun. The Dark Horde was busy mobilizing atop the leaf litter. It was here where I spotted an alarming sight. The Dark Horde was feasting on a dead adult huntsman spider. They cooperatively began to dissect and move the dead spider's limbs. This was a bit of a concerning sight for me, for a couple of reasons. First, I wished this dead huntsman would have gone on to nourish any of the many native ant species of the forest. But more importantly, as I stared at the lifeless gaze of this dead huntsman, I knew it was the start of an event I had no control over. The mass die-offs had begun. Nearby, the chromatoblasters were busy. These ants normally don't hang out down here at ground level, as they typically are up in the vines or up in the canopy, but they too were preparing for the Great Change. I watched as the acrobat ants raced across the floor, carrying brood. Interesting that they were storing their babies within spaces in the leaf litter. I spotted a giant snail tucked into its shell. It too was hunkering down to prepare to brave the harsh conditions that were coming. No creature would be safe, except for a lucky few, like the Dark Horde, who were highly adapted to deal with what was to come. A grouping of mealybugs lay motionless on their vine air root as their hairs blew in the warm breeze. The mealybugs were also preparing by giving birth to their final set of young, those little beads there, before they too would lack the resources needed to procreate and expand their colony. These mealybugs have been an important carb food source for the ants, as they excrete a sweet byproduct called honeydew, a resource that is highly prized and defended aggressively by the chromatoblasters, who guard the mealybug herds like sheep and incessantly lick the droplets of honeydew off the leaf surfaces below. Soon such food sources will be scarce once the Great Change arrives. Now this Great Change has caused a shift in the behavior of many animals, and it's most apparent after the sun goes down. Night fell in the ant room. And something was extra loud tonight. It was a noise louder than anything I've ever heard in my 2 years of caring for the Vivaria. And it was coming from Verdantia, the grasslands vivarium. Something was singing at the top of its wings. It was one of the insects, but this was no cricket. I spotted a slant-faced grasshopper crawling along the glass. This grasshopper gets its name from its uniquely shaped head as it crawled discreetly by. But I knew these grasshoppers, and all the noise wasn't coming from this little guy. I followed the sound and discovered this unique grasshopper. Wow! Looks similar but was slightly larger and a different shape. This was definitely a species that was introduced into here as an egg in the soils or as a baby coming in with the plants, because I certainly didn't add it in here. What a stunning orthopteran, and such a loud musician. But oh, a commotion in the nearby plants caused it to stop singing and stand completely still. Dinosaurs were approaching. Sunny and Cher, the resident king quails, were on the prowl for insects. Now usually these birds are diurnal, meaning they're typically awake during the day, but here in the grasslands, they too were adjusting their schedule in light of the oncoming change. They were nighttime creatures now. Cher caught something, a fat cricket. She quickly dispatched it. And once immobilized, swallowed the entire cricket whole. These quails were on a mission to eat as much as possible right now. Sunny was on the lookout for food. He took a quick swig of water, and soon... Aha! Gotcha! Whoopee! Cher, come here! Hurry! Hurry, hurry, hurry! What? What is it? Oh! There you go, dear. Thank you. Sunny was so uxorious, willing to give up the protein to his wife, who actually needed it more than he did currently. You see, their breeding season was fast approaching, and Cher should be entering her egg-laying season soon, but only if she's able to acquire enough protein in the months leading up to breeding season. For now, Sunny will have to pass on protein to Cher and feed on seeds and plants to sustain himself, while Cher fattens up for their potential future chicks. They also knew that they needed to eat as much as they could now, before food became scarce. Certain spots in the grasslands were already beginning to dry up, which will make good nesting material when they're ready to nest build, but not good when the dryness begins to spread and more of the grassland foliage begins to die out. It was crunch time for the quails as they foraged into the night, gathering as much food as they could eat to prepare for the great change. In the seed plate, I spotted other creatures busy loading up on the goods. The Reapers, our resident colony of marauder ants, were busy on their night shift collecting seeds. These ants at other parts of the year can be seen foraging above ground during the day, but have recently also made the switch over to a night schedule. The ants meticulously selected the best seeds and grains to store within their underground chambers for what they could sense would be some hostile months ahead. Have a look. Here the seeds will remain and be eaten over time, or germinate to give rise to new plants come the rainy season, or be eaten by other ants who are cunning enough to steal their stash. What tiny ant species is that? Other creatures have begun to transition to a life below ground. In a nearby subterranean chamber, I spotted a mass of eggs. Cool! Looking closer, it was a female earwig guarding her brood. She would remain here in this underground chamber, licking the eggs clean, protecting them from fungal infection. And once the babies hatch, she'll guard them for several weeks until they're ready to emerge above ground, come the rainy season, when it's safer for them to emerge. Because truth is, this chamber would act as an effective doomsday bunker for this female and her young. One of the many ways in which even our grassland creatures have been preparing for the great change coming soon. In the wetlands, a huntsman stopped cold in its tracks to make way for the Serpent King. Valentino, my green tree python, smelled the surface of the water with his tongue and began to drink. Have you ever seen a snake drink? He had just finished shedding his skin, which lay slung like an old stocking on the branches above. The shedding process of snakes is physically demanding and involves the production of a lymphatic fluid layer between the old and new skin, which often leads to snakes becoming extra thirsty immediately after the shed. The huntsman lay completely still as Valentino continued to drink. Minutes went by and Valentino continued to drink. I just couldn't believe how much he was drinking. Guess he was really thirsty. Below the water's surface, the tetras had drifted off to sleep, and the aquatic nighttime creatures were out to play. Hyperamano shrimp were darting all over the place. A nerite snail was awake, scraping the glass of algae. A dwarf pea pufferfish was floating around in search of small soft-bodied creatures and tiny snails to eat. A Corydorus catfish was busy sifting through the sand for edibles. Joined by the Skittles, a team of cherry shrimp who were out feeding under the cover of night. These aquatic creatures were actually lucky, as they were among the few creatures who would not be affected much by the Great Change. Life would continue to be normal for them, as the Great Change happens above. Another group of creatures in Hydromeda that won't be negatively affected by the Great Change, but rather are actually quite ecstatic about its onset, were these guys. Male tree frogs emerged into the moonlight to begin their nightly activities. These male tree frogs had not left Hydromeda since last year's breeding season. And in fact, some of these tree frogs were the young adults that had grown up from last year's tadpole batch, tree frog natives. Breeding season was close for these frogs, and soon, when conditions are correct, they'll start singing into the night to attract females needing to spawn. As of now though, the females are in a place far, far away. In fact, the females deserted the males directly after breeding season last year, leaving Hydromeda and migrating to the furthest possible place. Up in the canopy, the female tree frog lay still on her branch. She's been living happily in the treetops for about a year, feeding on insects and fattening up for her oncoming spawning season. She could also feel the great change coming. And so too could these little guys. Termite soldiers were marching boldly up the branch as they came to a dead end. Okay, soldiers, hold up. What is this slimy wall? What do we do now? I don't know. 6, 7? That doesn't even make sense. The tree frog was totally in the way, but the termites had to think of something. Luckily, the termites were able to squeeze into a tight space beneath the frog, then emerge from a hole on the other side. These termites, which very infrequently emerge out in the open like this, as they're usually concealed in their poop tunnels, were scouting the area to build their last-minute tunnels before the arrival of the Great Change. These termites, however, were total OGs in our forest and had successfully survived 2 other similar events and knew exactly how to survive what was coming. So AC family, have you guessed what the Great Change is yet? One last clue before I fill you in on the tea. And for this, we need to head down to the heart of our biological ecosystem. Pandora, the rainforest floor, which has undergone this annual change more times than any of our biomes and their creatures. Pandora is such a beautiful place at night, as the spiritual mists drifted across the rainforest floor, bathing all surfaces with essential hydration. These mists were much more valuable now, more than ever, for all the life living within the forest. Every time I visit Pandora at night, it takes my breath away. Seeing the beautiful world we've created and watched grow and change over time. The creatures that have come and gone, the stories we've watched unfold, and the memories that will remain forever emblazoned in my mind. I hope I never take this miracle of a vivarium, our forest, and all its extensions for granted. A movement off to the side caught my eye. It was a massive mama. A female dubia cockroach scaled her way down the screen mesh. She was one of the many species of roaches inhabiting our forest. Up higher in the driftwood, I caught sight of another incredible event. 2 American cockroaches were locked together, mating. This was the very first time I've ever seen this, as I've never seen the species mate before. How interesting. These American cockroaches, despite their name, are originally from Africa, but have become a worldwide invasive species, especially in the tropics. They're abundant where I live, and I was crazy enough to add them into Pandora last year. And since then, they have been multiplying within our forest, offering our predators a quickly replicating food source. And speaking of predators, I also spotted a lot of these guys. Tiny huntsman spiderlings were seen all over Pandora. They were extremely tiny and were just a few days old. I also spotted a slightly older huntsman baby, and one that was even older, and another that was even older, and was feasting on a burrowing cockroach. The huntsmen were all hoping to get lucky enough to snag one of the multitude of creatures at soil level. The leaf litter, particularly at night, was perhaps the busiest layer of our forest. I see an earwig, the nomads, our resident nomads, a snail and isopods, a black crazy ant, and even another species of forest roach crawling through the leaf litter. But you'll find the final clue as to what the great change is when you look here at this giant snail, who has actually remained in the spot like this for the past 2 weeks. Tiny isopods were taking refuge near it to mooch off the moisture. This snail was actually deep asleep, estivating for the great change. So, in case you haven't figured it out by now, the great change hitting the ecosystem is summer, which, where I live, officially arrives this month. Summers in the tropics of Southeast Asia are quite intense, as you may have seen at this time last year and the year before that. Summer marks the complete disappearance of rain. Temperatures rise to scorching levels, and most of the life in our Vivaria begins to enter a dormant state, kind of like hibernation during winter months for animals in temperate regions. To self-preserve during the hostile summer months, plants lose their leaves and sort of shrivel up. Insects retreat to damper and cooler areas below ground. Creatures that normally emerge in the day switch to a night schedule to escape the sun, and a ton of life actually dies off. Only a few species are able to withstand the heat and dryness of the summer. The black crazy ants, for instance, being one of them, who have been waiting for this time of the year when all the local life goes to sleep and dies off for 2 months. Now, as morbid as this all seems, this seasonal change is completely vital for the ecosystem. When the plants shed off the majority of their leaves and die out, the leaf litter collects in large amounts along the floor, creating a protective roof for soil life against the dryness and heat of the sun, offering a stable and moist refuge for them. The soil creatures also feed on this abundance of fallen leaf litter all summer long, which releases an abundance of nutrients through their poop into the soil. In the absence of rain, which would normally wash these nutrients away into water systems, the nutrients collect and sit there in the soil all summer long, transforming the soil into a nutrient-dense growing medium for all the plants to benefit from when they wake up during the cooler rainy season after their summer-long slumber. The robust plant life, the return of hydration, and cooler temperatures that come with the rainy season causes a revitalization down the food chain until the entire system returns to full bloom. So though the vivariums will undergo a somewhat lull in biodiversity in the upcoming summer months, there are several things I am looking forward to at the onset of summer. First, the breeding of several animals takes place during the summer, like the tree frogs, whom I expect will begin to spawn in hydrometa, like they did last year, in a few more weeks. I also anticipate the emergence of Shortcake, our strawberry Pac-Man frog, who has been hibernating underground for the past few months, who upon awakening will immediately be ready to mate. I hope to pair her with my other senior frog and have been doing a ton of research to help ensure conditions are perfect. I also look forward to reintroducing an all-star favorite, the sunskinks, whose babies I will start to look out for in my yard to add and raise, once again in our rainforest, and the grasslands, perfect predators to help cull away at the roaches who have been breeding non-stop since their absence. I also look forward to our quails having their first set of young in Verdantia. I believe the fact that these predator breeding schedules, as well as prey breeding schedules, sync perfectly with summer is no coincidence. Once the rainy season hits and an abundance of insect prey and plants fills the forest, the newborns will have a glorious environment to grow up in, with plenty of food. Until then, I will use this lull in animal activity during the summer to make certain installations, like the first glass bridge that will join Verdantia to the entire system, here along the top wall to Arcadia. I've already ordered the glass, and the entire structure should be completed within the coming weeks, so that once the rainy season hits, in May or June, the creatures on both sides will wake up to a new bridge leading to a whole new and vast space to explore and inhabit. I can't wait for the Great Connection event to see what creatures make the migration. But speaking of new installations, migrations, and connection events, regarding the epic return of Godzilla, AC Family, there's something else extremely exciting I have to share with you. Vote in my community tab to affect this story.